All right, everyone. Now we have to talk about Hillary Clinton again because there's a new book that's apparently out by a New York Times columnist. This is a liberal individual, followed the Clinton campaign around, presumably voted for Clinton. Not like some right-wing conspiracy. It's not like Hillary Clinton always drags it out. She did this in the 90s. She's done it recently. The media is it's a vast right-wing conspiracy. The media is controlled by my enemies. They don't want a strong, empowered left-wing woman to lead the country, basically. And she's come out and said, oh, they were never going to let me be president. And it's like, you know, the New York Times, oddly enough, the same firm there was chuckling about the fact that this was said because, like, Hillary Clinton was the one responsible for campaigning. She just wasn't really in it. She was using an outmoded style of campaigning from fucking almost 30 years ago. What more need you know? There was never a chance that she was going to win. That is, that people following the campaign from the inside knew that there were problems that they didn't let on to the outside world. They projected invulnerability, said Trump would never win. On the inside, they all knew, hey, there are problems here. I'm not so sure about this, and the polling looks like it's fuckery. Because it was. It was swung in the direction of Clinton by 5 to 10 points per poll, generally speaking, at the behest of the Clinton campaign. Quite literally, there was an email that was released. I think it was one of the Podesta releases, but it may have been from the larger bulk of DNC releases about how they were trying to skew the polls by conducting them in areas that were favorable to Clinton to make it look like she was stronger than she was. Basically, places that demographically did not actually represent their states. Even Clinton herself may have not been aware that this was going on. This could have been why her campaign failed. She might have actually believed the skewed polls and said, hey, nobody wants to vote for Trump. He's going to lose every state. What are you so worried about? Meanwhile, her staffers, they're sitting there twiddling their thumbs nervously. But apparently, well, at least on one occasion, she got really, really unhinged during a pre-debate sort of prep thing before one of the presidential debates. And she broke down and she was like, oh, you want authentic? And she started shrieking about how Trump was disgusting, a despicable individual. He wasn't even worthy to debate her and was just generally a slimeball, I guess. This corroborates. This is from a New York Times reporter. Now think, these are corporate media individuals that get paid large sums of money to make up propaganda for the globalists, essentially, for the neoliberals and the neocons, for people who range between John Kerry and John McCain, for people within the establishment, the rich political moneyed elite. That's basically who they work for. It's who they represent. Yet I'm looking here at one of them writing a book that says, oh yeah, she's just as crazy as everyone speculated. You know, those tales, I guess, about her throwing wine bottles at people's heads or attacking Bill with a pan might very well be true. She actually is unhinged. Now think about it. Usually, in the current political climate, they want you to believe that everyone who stands against Trump is perfectly sane, grave-faced, solemn, loves the flag, and lowers their head whenever they pass a statue of Abraham Lincoln, and Trump is completely nuts. He yells at people, he goes crazy, he has no respect for the decorum around him, probably puts his fist through the portrait of Lincoln or something at some point. They want you to believe that he's nuts. And yet here we have someone who's on the inside of the Clinton campaign saying, oh, Hillary should get unhinged a little bit. Now, it doesn't use those words. It says basically, it tries to fluff it up and say, well, this shows she can actually be authentic. She is capable of breaking through sort of the sort of stereotypically Clinton, very professionalistic 90s era sort of look that was crafted for her specifically by focus groups. She was actually capable of showing human emotion, which is something we didn't often see when she was on the campaign trail. That's not, though, what I read from this. What I read from this is she randomly has bouts of extreme anger. That's something that nobody who has actually provably been around Trump ever has claimed about him, by the way. It's always a source from within the White House says. An anonymous tipster says Trump was really angry today. He was shouting at Rex Tillerson. Trump was mad earlier. He started insulting Mike Pence. But it's never a named source. Here we have someone named from the New York Times writing a fucking book about the subject. There's a little bit of a difference there, yeah. When are we going to get someone who's personally, aware of Trump's demeanor, saying similar things? So far, I haven't seen that. No, it's always someone who may or may not even exist. It's always through a BuzzFeed or an Atlantic or New York Times, maybe CNN or MSNBC. MSNBC, by the way, has its own problems right now, significant problems. As in, yeah, they were basically the only left-wing network competing with Fox for that #1 slot. They might have a problem doing that now. CNN might come roaring back to life because they cannibalize 500,000 MSNBC viewers during a boycott due to Joy Reid or something. It's going to be funny to see. Yeah, you want authentic? And then she goes off. Well, that's during debate prep. You also have to realize she does this, apparently habitually. Now, this article states, of course, well, the staffers and aides realized that occasionally she had to go off the handle to sort of keep them in line, to let them know who's boss, I guess, to keep them working hard. That doesn't sound very good at a managerial strategy to me. What if your boss at the New York Times were to treat you like that? Just randomly berate you once a month to make sure that you kept working hard for your whipping taskmasters. I think that eventually you'd probably quit and go to work for someone else. So I'm going to assume that this is just her mental state's not all there. She's actually violent and despicable. That's who she is as a person, which makes sense. Look, she found it very funny when Gaddafi was killed and dragged through the streets and, raped with a stick and stuff. She thought that was hilarious to watch Libya crumble from near first world conditions into sub-third world tribal warfare and civil warfare. She thought that was great. She thought it was great to watch Egypt almost suffer the same fate. She thinks it's funny to talk about bombing Iran. She basically sounded like John McCain during the same election, which is why the Democrats thought it was a better idea to get Obama in there. By the way, I concur. Clinton may have lost against John McCain. Then where would we be as a country? That would have been really shitty. Yes, Obama at the very least was more sane than Hillary Clinton. Not necessarily more honest, but at least more sane. As in not demented, as in not prone to suddenly collapsing randomly and having to get thrown like a sack of potatoes into a vehicle that then speeds down the road to avoid the news cameras. Now, Hillary Clinton, it appears, suffers from some sort of congenital behavioral defects. That is, I think she was like a spoiled child. Don't let her, average Southern girl demeanor actually fool you. Now, that's not what happened. She was a child of privilege, literal privilege, not race or gender or something, but privileges in money. Money and political power. Old Goldwater Republican folks, essentially, but before the flipping of the parties, essentially, in the Nixonian era. She was born with privilege and told basically, you're daddy's princess, you're wonderful, you're perfect, everything you want, you will have. You must not settle for silver, you must get gold all the time. And that sort of, grew with her over time. She was a spoiled brat, essentially. And it seems like Chelsea's been raised the same way. Look, Colin Powell, I think, was the one talking about that. Oh, yeah, we can't stand Chelsea. She's an entitled snob, basically. Yeah, I can believe it. So, in other words, she's just like her mother. There's a reason why these people, thankfully, screwed themselves out of what would have been a long-lasting dynastic political presence. It would have been American royalty at that point. If Clinton had been in, it would have been very, very strange. Look, it also would have been terrible for, so-called women's rights movements, and I'll tell you why. It would have looked kind of conspicuous that the first female president had to be the wife of a former male president. It would have looked a little bit odd. Now, I think I'd rather wait until someone who didn't ride coattails. I'd rather someone, be in that position who's qualified, who's probably not going to start a nuclear conflict. So far Trump hasn't started a nuclear war. I was promised it would be Fallout real life by now. I would go down to Boston so I could go and hunt mirelurks or something. They sound tasty to me. Giant lobsters or crabs, wherever the hell they're supposed to be. That would be a fun time. So far, Trump hasn't actually started a nuclear war with Russia or something. Now, Clinton said, oh, so dangerous, everything's going to be horrible. Well, where's that war you talked about? I want to see Liberty Prime march through the streets. What can I say? I want to see all of the U.S. cool top-secret military tech spill out into the general public so people are killing themselves with laser rifles. I want to see that. I probably won't get to, though, because Trump, unlike Hillary Clinton, is sane. He's sane, but acts insane, whereas she's insane and tries, in the public at least, to act sane. It's almost like a total, real dichotomy. It's pretty funny to think about. That's about all. Peace out.